Hello, and welcome back to the Pinim channel, the best channel on YouTube. Go ahead and drop a like, subscribe right now. Anyways, let's not waste time. Today, I'm here to discuss the top 10 hardest bosses in Black Myth Wukong. I'm gonna go ahead and go over the top 10. See what you think the hardest Black Myth Wukong boss is in the comments. Because remember, this is just my opinion. I beat the game recently, and so I'm just really going to give my top 10. Anyways, let's get started. Starting with our honorable mentions, I'm going to go with the Emerald Armed Mantis from Chapter 6, Yellow Brow, the final boss of Chapter 3, and the 1000-Eyed Taoist Master. They all have their various reasons why they didn't make it into the top 10, but I'm not really going to go into them in this video. Anyways, number 10, the Stone Monkeys. The second to final boss fight in the game. Most of you would be thinking, that goes higher, like what is he doing, it's a terrible ranking. But personally, at this point in the game, you have the best armor, best weapons, best everything, and you're fighting a hard boss, admittedly, but you've mastered the game by this point. You know what you're doing, you know how to fight, you have the best loot, best armor, you have so much more skill than you did when you started the game, which makes this boss fight not as difficult as it normally would be. The Stone Monkeys have a second phase where 2 Stone Monkeys appear, which is slightly harder, but it's not pushing it over the edge like some of the other bosses on this list. So overall, Stone Monkeys are ranked at 10 on the list. Number 9 is Dusk Veil. Alright, this might be a controversial pick. Dusk Veil for me was one of the hardest bosses in the game. For some people, Dusk Veil was one of the easiest bosses in the game. It really just depends on your moveset and if you're just equipped to fight Dusk Veil. It took me hours to beat Dusk Veil, but some people beat it on their first try. Dusk Veil has his first phase, which is simple, but his second phase is where it really ramps up difficulty. In the second phase, everything turns red, and overall, it's just way harder. So, it's pretty difficult. Number 8, the Supreme Inspector, which is the first boss when you make it to Chapter 6. The Supreme Inspector, at first, I didn't think it was going to be that hard. Off my first try, I got him down to like 1 health, and I was chilling. But anything after that, it was just absolute hell. The Supreme Inspector was an extremely hard boss. It took me hours to beat the Supreme Inspector, and I would never want to fight that boss again. His first phase isn't too bad, but his second phase where he rides his weird red unicycle is absolutely horrendous. He's really hard to avoid, and his third phase just ramps the difficulty up by 100. Just making every move from the previous 2 phases just all come back, which just makes it like extremely hard. He barely gives you any time to get hits off too, so really hard boss fight. Took me a bunch of tries. Number 7. This one might sound wild to you guys, but I'm going to go with the White-Clad Noble from Chapter 1. Now, before you get all up in arms, the White-Clad Noble's trash, the White-Clad Noble's easy, let me explain myself. The White-Clad Noble in Chapter 1 this is the beginning of the game. Take that into account. Beginning of the game, you're just like learning how to use your first 2 spells, and you are faced with the White-Clad Noble. A boss that attacks really quick, doesn't give much time for other attacks, and has a whole second phase. Almost everybody that I've seen play through this struggles to death on the White-Clad Noble. Especially on your first playthrough. I see how, like, if you run the playthrough back, this would be easy, but on your first playthrough, this boss fight is unfair. It's completely absurd. The White-Clad Noble is, like, ridiculous for a Chapter 1 boss. The White-Clad Noble would be equivalent to a Chapter 3 boss. Anyways, I'm not going to waste time talking about the White-Clad Noble. Number 6 is the Yashaki King. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I don't even know if that first name's right. But hey, who really cares, am I right? The Yashaki King is the final boss of Chapter 5, and it's the second phase of Red Boy. The Yashaki King has really far-ranged attacks, unavoidable attacks, and heavily damaging attacks. Bajier comes in to help you fight like the first 5 seconds of this fight, but after that he leaves. So most of the fight you're on your own. You have to fight this fight a million times before you can beat it. Like, this fight is rough, dude. I've seen a couple people beat this on their first try. I don't know how. Maybe I'm just not have the equipped skill set to beat this. Don't mind my stuttering. Maybe I just don't have the equipped skill set to beat this, but Lord, this was a hard fight. Overall, though, it wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. So, it's not super bad, but it's pretty hard. Alright, number 5, Yellow Long. You already knew Yellow Long was going to be on the list. Yellow Long is undoubtedly the hardest boss of Chapter 4, and one of the hardest bosses of all time, hence why Yellow Long is in the top 5 of the list. Yellow Long has attacks that do like 3/4 of your health bar. Keep in mind, you're only in Chapter 4, so your loot at this point in the game isn't really that good. You're in Chapter 4, you have kind of mid-average type loot, and you're fighting Yellow Long, who takes literally no damage, basically no damage to every single hit that you do to him, which makes this fight absolutely absurd. Now, I don't know if it's worth it, though, because in the end, after defeating Yellow Long, all you get is the Yellow Long transformation, and you get the, you can be able to craft the Long Staff. The Long Staff is the best staff up to that point in the game, but it gets topped by a better staff not too far after. And the Yellow Long transformation is really good, but it's really complicated and hard to learn compared to the other transformations you get. Alright, moving on. Number 4, the Bishui Golden-Eyed Beast. Once again, I don't really know if I'm saying that right, but this is the secret boss in Chapter 5. If you beat this boss, you get a couple pieces of special armor, which get topped by the next armor set right after it. So this boss fight's pretty useless if you ask me. But he's a secret boss and he's really difficult. He attacks constantly applying a pressure to you. There's lava all over the floors, so you're constantly being burned. And he's just, if you don't have the fireproof mantle, you are just cooked. He's just gonna sit there and spam fire on you. He does not give you a single opening for attack. Half of your immobilizers don't work on him. He's really overpowered. He does so much damage. I don't understand how you avoid his grab. But this is a hard fight. I don't really understand how you beat this on your first try. But, you know, there's some little sweats at the game out there who've definitely done it. The Bishui Golden-Eyed Beast took me probably 15 more, maybe even more tries than that. Lord, this boss fight was a massacre. It was brutal. Good luck with that one if you're still coming to fight it. Anyways, number 3. Now, this one might sound a little crazy to you guys, but, you know, like I said, this is my list, my opinion. Number 3 is the Yellow Wind Sage. Oh my lord, the Yellow Wind Sage. It was atrocious. This boss fight brought me down to my knees. This boss fight took me days to beat. The Yellow Wind Sage was brutal. I would never fight the Yellow Wind Sage again. When I first went into this fight, I did not have the Wind Tamer. With the Wind Tamer, this fight is much easier. But without the Wind Tamer, this fight is like nearly impossible. First phase isn't really that bad. You just dodge a couple moves. Second phase is where the difficulty skyrockets. And you have to dodge constant attacks that you just have to remember his moveset. Then he comes back into form and you just have to dodge more attacks. You get a brief opening for attacks. It's just brutal. Half the time he hides behind the sand wall so you can't even attack him. He sits and he spams long-range attacks from behind the wall, so there's nothing you can do besides dodge. And then in his third phase, he summons a tornado that constantly picks you up and throws you around, doing loads of damage, while the Wind Sage is still attacking you with a completely different moveset. I don't understand how you do this at the Wind Tamer. The Wind Tamer carried me through this fight. And even with the Wind Tamer, it took me dozens of attempts just to get past the Yellow Wind Sage. Lord, the Yellow Wind Sage is rough. Anyways, number 2, the Great Sage's Broken Shell, aka you're fighting yourself. Oh my lord, this boss fight, dude. This boss fight took me ages to beat. This boss fight brought me down to my last knee. So much anger, the amount of anger that went through me while dealing with this boss fight. Oh my gosh. The Great Sage's Broken Shell. It has 2 phases. He's constantly pumping out combos. He's using your spells. He can drink from your gourd in phase 2 and heal himself back up, which, oh my gosh, is so annoying. It seems cool, but it gets annoying, trust me. The Great Sage's Broken Shell, I don't even really have to explain it that much. It's just a brutal, annoying, rough fight. But it's really beautiful, like the rest of the game. So you might be wondering, wow, Penum, what's number 1? You've said all this crazy stuff about these last 9 bosses. What can number 1 possibly be? What can possibly top everything else on this list? Well, let me tell you, oh my gosh. Erlong the Sacred Divinity, the secret true final boss of the game. You have to go through an alternate ending to get this boss, and I would not consider it worth it. The amount of days, suffering, pain, agony I went through while fighting Erlong the Sacred Divinity. His moveset is insane. I don't understand how you dodge half of his attacks. It's just absurd. His second and third phases are not bad. His second and third phases are easy. But I'm mainly talking about the first phase. The first phase of Erlong the Sacred Divinity is like out of this world difficult. I have never fought a boss that difficult in my life. Oh my gosh, the amount of deaths I faced trying to dodge his constant damaging combos. Oh my gosh, his attacks do skyrockets amount of damage. It's absurd. Anyways, that concludes the top 10. If you liked the video, go ahead, like, subscribe, you know the deal, Leave your personal hardest boss in the comments below, and nothing too much to do it. If this video gets a couple likes, I might do a part 2 where I rank the top 10 easiest bosses in Black Myth Wukong. Anyways, that's about it. Bye-bye.